Now, it's time to go to Australia and to go and talk to Jaqui Lane on our letter from Australia, who is looking resplendent again. You look very good. I like that orange top, I have to say. That looks nice on you.
Yeah, orange is my favourite colour.
Oh, is it?
So.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Did it become your favourite colour, or was it always since you were a small child?
No, I don't know. No, I think probably about 15 years ago or something, and it was before orange was the new black, so no, I like bright colours. Corporate Sydney and Melbourne tend to be very dark and black, and
yes, they do.
So I'm constantly, so I've always worn bright colours, and orange is my favourite.
It was very interesting when I took my first trip to Australia as an adult. I think I went there in the 1980s. That was the thing that struck me about Sydney and Melbourne, was that everyone wore black. It wasn't just a New Zealand tradition.
Yeah, and it's I guess that corporate suit thing, and black is kind of the de facto uniform. It's a bit more relaxed these days, but it's still pretty much the corporate uniform.
Okay. Listen, it's been momentous week. Last week, Donald Trump had just won the presidency. We knew that, but we didn't know how necessarily the Senate or the House was to turn out. Those have now been settled as well. The Republicans are in charge for the next 2 years. But the big issue, and we just touched on it briefly last week, was, new group in charge in the United States in Washington. Relationship between Australia and the United States is much more intense and close than it is between New Zealand and the United States. Kevin Rudd, the former Labour Party Prime Minister, is the ambassador to there. How's that playing out? Because he said some very nasty things about Donald Trump, the new president-elect, and Donald Trump, in actual fact, was aware of it in his reports. Is Kevin Rudd going to keep his job?
I don't think he should. Whether he will or not, it's up to the current government. But the reality is, he's taken some of his comments off social media, and the line is that he said them when he was not in a diplomatic or official capacity. But the reality is, he's a former Prime Minister of Australia, and he probably should have zipped his lip at the time, and I think it's untenable that he stays. Trump is not known for being forgiving, and you've got an upstart, has-been Prime Minister as the diplomat in Washington, and I think he'll probably, use the equivalent of a fly swat. And in a way, so he should. Totally inappropriate and undiplomatic for someone in his role.
I note that there's a sort of a cultural battle going on between the Sydney Morning Herald and between News Corp on this issue. In fact, on the front page of the Sydney Morning Herald, I don't have front page, but certainly on the electronic copy I receive, their editorial has been written, Rudd spoke sense about Trump. It's a vengeful News Corp that has the explaining to do. What's the background to that?
This is this whole thing that Rupert Murdoch and News Corp, and it's the culture wars, and never the twain shall meet. So that's why you have to read widely, Michael, because you've got to understand what's driving the various papers and media outlets.
So on this one, News Corp and the Rupert Murdoch media are saying Rudd's got to go. But the Sydney Morning Herald stepping in and defending him and saying, no, he's only got to go because Rupert Murdoch says he's got to go. So we think that, he should stay on the basis that the other side think he should go. Have I got that right?
Yeah. It's pretty childish, really.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. Herald should just grow up and grab a spine while they do it.
Well, yeah. Well, that's not going to happen in a hurry, though, is it? Listen, the other thing that you've talked about it every week, and we talk about, I find it remarkable that we might be looking at a one-term Labour government headed by Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. The election, I think, has to be held within 6 months, doesn't it, Jack? So I think we're looking May is the latest they can go next year. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
Right. Well, we're 6 months out. What's the inside goss?
The inside goss, don't have any inside goss, but just looking at the tea leaves. Albanese was over in Western Australia. The importance for that is West Australia voted significantly for Labor at the last election. So it's an important state for Labor to win. Also, West Australia goes to the polls in March for a state election. So if Albo wants to go early, he has to kind of negotiate around that, because really if he was going to go early, sometime in March is really the window for him. So the talk was that, and in fact the state premier there said, oh yeah, Albo and I talked about election timing. So, it's no big secret that potentially, he's going to go and he would just have to negotiate around this WA state election, which I think is the 8th of March. So there's opportunity for him to go. The economy's not going to change. There won't be an interest rate fall between now and then that they were hoping for. None of the economic indicators are looking great. It seriously looks like they're in pre-election mode.
Okay. Listen, I've just read now something that I'm not sure you're up to date with, but it's just extraordinary. Premier Jacinta Allen. Now, she's the Premier of what, Victoria?
Victoria?
Yeah. She's just accused pro-Palestine protesters of politicising Christmas after retail giant Myer cancelled the launch of its annual window display in response to a planned demonstration. Myer apparently have a lovely Christmas display on their front of their retail outlets, but it's just been cancelled by Myer, they say, because of Palestinian protests. Could you explain that to me?
I haven't caught up with that, but yeah, like the Myer window display is one of those great kind of events, I guess, if you're interested in retail, and families line up and walk down the windows and it's a big kind of event, and same here in Sydney. David Jones used to have the same thing. And so kind of it's a big deal for the community, I guess. And I guess what's happened is that, some pro-Palestinian people want to run a rally, I guess, down that kind of the mall. There's a big Burke Street mall in Melbourne. So I guess Myer probably quite reasonably thought it wouldn't be a great idea to have thousands of families queuing up going past the windows when you've got a protest going on, which I think is sensible. Does the Premier need to wade into it? No, I don't think so, really. I mean, just let people do what they need to and stay out of it.
No, listen. You've got a Christian tradition, which is Christmas, and you've got the Palestinians who are presumably Muslim, and the Jews who are presumably Jews on the other side. Seriously,
well, a lot of Palestinians are Christian. There's I think why do premiers insist, or state people insist on wading into everything? I mean, she's got bigger issues like a huge budget and that she can't pay off, and let's focus on what's in the key issues for that state rather than this.
Having said that, it does again demonstrate something that we don't have in New Zealand so much. I mean, we do have Palestinian protests, but it has become a recurrent feature of your political landscape over there. I see now that Anthony Albanese is being. I mean, there is disputes within exactly the Labor government over the recognition of Palestine, the two-state solution, and things like that. Have been any further developments on that issue?
Well, Australia has just voted in the UN for the resolution that Palestine should have rights over its resources. I'm not sure if you've caught up with that.
No.
And it's voted with, the US and Israel obviously have voted against it, but Australia has voted for it, along with 152 other countries, that, it has an inalienable right to its resources, its infrastructure, it's all the rest of it. So, I think that's come about. There's a lot of pressure on Labor and all parties to take an active stance one way or the other. And it won't just be Labor, it'll be all parties who will be being pressured by both kind of groups, I guess, if you like to say it, and they're going to have to make a decision. Can't sit on the fence on this one.